Dr. Jazz.
Sounds from Home, to start with this one first. I mean, I know I've checked what you've done. You've been really busy even in this lockdown period. And but I first want to start with this solo album. I mean, I know you've done so many solo albums before, but I don't know, this one, at least for me, maybe, since we're dealing with this awkward situation now, it's kind of, it touched me quite a lot, I guess. That was the idea. And what was your mindset behind it? I think you caught like this really beautiful, intimate moment, I think. So.
Yeah, well, as I might have mentioned in the liner notes, I was the very first week of lockdown, I started doing these Facebook Lives just with my phone, simple. Then I did one tune every day at 1:00 p.m., just whatever I felt like. I did that for quite a while, 6-8 weeks, something like that. And then of course, we realized it was going to go on for a long time. I thought, I don't really want to keep doing this every day. It's just becoming a bit of a chore.
Yeah.
So I kind of stopped that for the most part. And then I guess about June or July, I thought, I don't want to go through a year without putting out something. I have this piano here, and I have some really good microphones, and I'd never used Logic before, but somebody set me up. So you hit R to record and space bar to stop. And I had a playlist of about 20 songs that I thought would be appropriate. And I didn't get good takes of all of them, obviously. And then a few I just decided to play at the last minute, and they happened to work out. One of the difficulties of recording an album like this is you can do infinite takes.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to decide, okay, I said it, maybe there's a flaw, but, emotionally, musically, this is what I want to say with this song. Mm-hmm. And the title Songs from Home was very deliberate. Most of them have words. I'm pretty word sensitive when I play anything that has words. So, and I wanted to play things that were familiar but not obvious.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do something that, just would really appeal to not just hardcore jazz fans, but to, anybody who likes piano music and songs. I mean, I wasn't selling out. I didn't want to make a wallpaper music album, but I wanted it to be, somewhat accessible. And in terms of the critical response, I mean, it's been as good or better than actually anything I've ever done. It's kind of surprising and gratifying too, but it's also because, not that many people have been recording this last year. I mean, there has been a lot of releases, unless people had things in the can before March. So the idea of doing it at home, and of course I play the piano, which is a very self-sufficient instrument. So it just kind of made sense to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll ever do another one, but it just, I don't know, it just seemed to be the right thing for this moment. That's all I can say. And I wasn't really motivated by anything other than to make people feel something or have a little bit of joy or, just, hope or whatever,
Yeah, no, I think you achieved that. You know, there's so many solo piano albums. The heritage of solo piano is, you know, starting from with Art Tatum or even going back, like, you know, those piano discoveries albums by Art, you know, those like the living room kind of recordings, like that's kind of what reminded me, like, it's like this quite intimate, and it's like,
Yeah. Well, that was an accidental recording. I mean, I don't know if he knew he was being recorded, but I put out a number of albums, solo and trio, that I did not know were being recorded. I just played a concert, and at the end they say, "Oh, by the way, we recorded it."
The live records that you've done, like you didn't know.
Yeah.
Or...
Well, you know, I think 9 out of my last 11 albums have been live.
Yeah.
And you know, I just feel like for jazz, you know, really just jazz, for me, the live thing is always better. There's something that we call red light syndrome, you know, which is like they come on the announcement, the talk back, they say take 2, and then you start to think about what you played on take 1 and how you could do it better, or you know, how you played it last week at a concert. You know, I think when I'm just playing a gig and not really thinking about it so much, or if I record at the Vanguard, I'm recording multiple nights and multiple sets. So even if there's just a couple things from any given set, that's enough for an album. Yeah. And like the last trio record live in Europe was, we didn't know that was being recorded. Open Book, an album called Solo. Live at the Bin House. You know, it just, I don't know. There's something about it. I mean, I wish, you know, I had the resources that, you know, Keith Jarrett had, you know, and recorded every gig always, which he was able to do. But, you know, I do try to record a lot of stuff if it's feasible. Or if they say, do you want us to record for an archive? I say, yeah, sure, why not? You know, you might get lucky. Yeah, you never know that. Yeah. This was a bit like a studio album and a bit not like a studio album. Yeah. I didn't really have a time constraint. Yeah, but like when you dealt with the songs, with the arrangements, did you, you know, I wrote to you like Widget Alignment, it's such a beautiful version you did. And I was surprised by, in a way, yes and no, by, you know, you did the When I'm 64, which in a way, you know, I think by knowing your music, you love melody and you love songs. And it was a surprise, but on the other hand, no. But like the arrangement-wise, both of these songs, or all of them, they sound really, in a way, you know, it's not just like playing a standard, or it sounds like a story behind it. I don't know how to put it in words even, but did you take time to arrange a song, or did you start playing it just? Well, I mean, like, you know, Wouldn't It Be Loverly? I just knew it was going to be a ballad in E, and that was all I knew. That was it. Okay. And then the arrangement sort of happened spontaneously. I mean, that's a beautiful thing about solo piano, is you can arrange spontaneously. If you decide to go into another key, you can do it. Or like the folk song, The Water Is Wide, I didn't know in the beginning that I was going to go to 3 or 4 different keys, and I didn't know that these interludes were going to happen. I mean, you know, I'm 65. I've been a professional for 45 plus years, and I don't know, made a lot of solo albums, a lot of solo concerts. And, you know, if I play something that I didn't intend, I think maybe the difference between me and maybe a younger, less experienced player is like, I don't freak out about it. I just go, oh, that's interesting. What can I do with it? Because you can't take it back. So why not just see, okay, maybe this opens a window to something that's interesting. Yeah. And yeah, you know, when I'm 64, there was no arrangement. You know, there really the most arranged thing was Wichita Lineman, because I had been playing that with a trio, and there was an interlude and a modulation that I knew, but I don't think anything else was really arranged.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can always tell. I can't say always, but a lot of times I can tell, especially in solo piano, I can tell when somebody has prepared an arrangement and is executing it, as opposed to an arrangement just kind of arriving.
Yeah.
There's a qualitative difference between something that is really happening at that moment versus something worked out.
Yeah.
There are certain tunes where I might present the theme pretty consistently time to time. I mean, over time, I've kind of found, you know, an interpretation or a pseudo arrangement. But when I do it, I always make sure to just like wiggle some details.
Yeah.
Just so that I'm reminding myself, okay, you're not playing Chopin, you know, you know, and nobody knows what I intended. So
that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
And talking to young musicians who compose, you know, I always stress that nobody's looking at a lead sheet. You know, nobody knows what you intended. You know,
that's true.
If you wrote, you know, C major sharp 5 and you don't play it, nobody cares. What they care about is it memorable? Does you look comfortable with it? Is it, you know, flowing?
Yeah.
But, you know, you can't get wrapped around the axle with that stuff, because when you're playing something that nobody's heard before, you really have a responsibility to say, okay, this is what I'm working with.
Yeah.
And when I teach, I'm a stickler for melody. I mean, I really am. Like, you've got to actually know the melody. So, yeah.
Yeah, also when I wrote down some compositions of yours, like lead sheets made, and you of yours, and that's what I wanted to ask you later about composition. But yeah, I got the idea with you that it's all about the melody, you know. It's, which even starting with Ornette or going even back, it's all about the melody. So yeah, makes sense. But was this your approach to solo piano, what you mentioned now? Was this already in the beginning how you approached it? Let's say when playing jazz, like in the 70s already, or yeah?
Yeah, I mean, before I really discovered all the great historical piano players, of course I knew Art Tatum and, you know, all the, you know, the people that would know, but before I started really digging around for the less well-known players, and before I discovered people like Earl Father Hines and you know, people like that, you know, if I thought of solo piano in 1973 when I started, you know, it was kind of Cecil Taylor and Keith Jarrett.
Yeah.
You know, and Cecil's music sounds very free, but it's highly organized, like highly organized. And, you know, Keith is like just kind of whatever happens. And it actually sounds sometimes more organized than what Cecil is doing. And of course, there were piano players, you know, that played solo piano, that played tunes, obviously. But I kind of had to find a way to do it for me. And I tend to be a little bit of a formalist. You know, I like to, you know, I'm kind of no nonsense usually about the way I put the material out. It could be an actual arrangement, like for the trio, that's complicated, but I want things to stick. That's a really important thing, that it is memorable. And you know, I mean, I didn't write a tune till I was 24.
Wow.
because I felt like, well, how am I going to write anything better than, Billy Strayhorn or Wayne Shorter, or, how am I going to write anything better? Like, why don't I just learn those?
Yeah.
And then I started writing tunes, but in the style of other tunes, because I felt like I wanted to like apprentice myself in a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the early 80s, that's when I started to find my voice a little bit. And of course, I've written a lot of tunes since then. But oddly, I've not written a tune in this last year. Not at all.
Wow.
I've been writing some classical piano music and preparing for a new album with a piano, bass, and drums and string quartet for next year.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
But I just haven't really wanted to write tunes. And I don't know, I mean, I've written a lot of tunes that I still like playing. I got a catalog of stuff that I enjoy, not to mention all the other tunes I know and love.
Sure.
So, I can see where Keith Jarrett at a certain point didn't want to write music, and he either improvised or played standards. I could see that now.
Yeah.
You get to a certain age where, you feel like every tune you've written is sort of a cousin of another tune you've written before. And or a son of or daughter of, and if I can't really find some kind of new way of writing tunes, I've got a bunch of them I can play anyway. So a tune is new every time you play it. So whether it's your theme or not, it's a different thing happens. So it's not so much what the thing is how you do it.
Right. It's heavy pressure. I mean, in a way, if you're, I think, I think you dealt with Whitman and you said you love words. I did a PhD on American poetry, and I think Creeley or someone said, basically that everything was already written. And it's also in music, if you check it out, I think all the 2-5-1s have been used in, whatever way. So it's, in a way, it's true, it's a pressure for a young composer, or not even young, whoever composer,
I mean, when I came to New York in 1977, kind of what I would call the job description for a young jazz pianist was very easy. I mean, not easy, but very, only a few things. You had to be able to swing. You had to know tunes. You had to be able to know, you needed to be able to comp or accompany a singer, comp with a horn player, and be a professional. I mean, that was the main thing, Nowadays, young musicians are very pressured to have their own band, write all their own music, have their own record label, manage their own careers. It's just it's different. And there are some composers out there who I seriously respect. And then there's a lot of stuff that I just feel is very complex or needlessly complex, and it doesn't stick, and it's like what happened in contemporary classical music. It became composers writing stuff for other composers. Yes. So, somebody at Columbia would write something, and somebody at Princeton would analyze it.
But in jazz, it's similar, right? I mean, many times, jazz musicians do a concert, and it's like jazz musicians on the concerts primarily, almost. I mean, many times.
Right. Yeah, they're jazz cats writing for other jazz cats, or women too.
Yeah.
But and I don't know. I visualize when I'm playing almost all the time. I visualize the Village Vanguard, because that is the place I've played the most. It's kind of my living room. I sort of own that place after all these years. It took me a while to feel like I deserve to be there. And so there's the front section where all the people are paying the money. Could be people out on a date, or jazz fans from Japan or Europe, or, you know, fans of mine, whatever. Those are the people in the front who paid the cover charge. They're having the drinks. And then you got the jazz cats at the bar. And of course you want to please both groups of people. You know, you want to play something that the people in front of like, and you want to get off the stand and have the jazz guys go, man, you sound great. That was killing. But to me, if I have a choice, I'm more responsible to the people in the front.
Yeah.
You know, and if the hipsters like it or not, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't spend my life trying to be hipper than the next hipster. You know, I can only do what I do, and there's a lot of stuff I can't do. And I've just come to realize that that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe there are things I can do that other people can't do. So it's all good.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, oranges and tangerines. I mean, it's just a different thing. So,
Sure.
you know, the idea is to be yourself here.
Yeah.
So, but not feel like you're in a box, but, you know, just to go with what you love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautifully said. It's true. No, we definitely found that. I mean, after, like you said, 45 years of work, and, you know, that's for sure. But can I ask you something? You mentioned like you came to New York in 1977, right? No, yeah. Like, and before that, if I remember correctly, you were from Ohio, Cincinnati, right? Like, how was this initial? I've spoken to so many great musicians in this series, and I'm always fascinated about this coming to New York story, all, you know, from various areas. And if I speak in your case, like coming from Cincinnati in 1977 to New York, how was this change for you? Like, how did you feel like that as a person and musician?
Well, I came via Boston because I went to New England Conservatory for 2 years. And there I met, I mean, the class of 77 was kind of the legendary jazz class of the school. I mean, we had Marty Ehrlich and the clarinetist Michael Moore and Anthony Coleman and Jerome Harris.
Oh yeah,
and,
exactly.
You know, it was just, I mean, it was an amazing peer group. And at that time, it wasn't a jazz program. It was just a department. So that meant you basically took the same classes as everybody else. And there were maybe big band arranging and one other thing, but it wasn't like jazz theory. It was just classical theory, and it was just classical music history. And there was no jazz history at all.
Yeah.
So you had to find things out for yourself, and also from your friends. So at least I had the experience of living alone, living on the East Coast, you know, getting used to public transportation and, you know, just being out of the nest.
Yeah.
And so moving to New York, I mean, I didn't think about it. I was living in the Village a week after graduation. I just went, because there was no real scene in Boston for professional musicians, you know, unless you were older and well established. And I just wanted to chase the dream. I said, I want to play with the best jazz players in the world. And for better or worse, I said, I deserve it. I should be up there. And then so 3 years later, I was playing with, you know, Joe Henderson and Ron Carter and Al Foster. And I had my moments on those bandstands where I thought, how did I get here? Like a young Jewish guy from Ohio, like, how did I get up here? And I guess I thought in the end, well, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't meant to be here.
Yeah.
You know, and also once the music starts, we're all equal. Even though these guys are like monsters and gods, you know, we're still a quartet, and I'm 1/4 of that band.
Yeah.
And if Joe didn't want me there, I wouldn't be there, you know.
Sure.
There was, so I got these votes of confidence from people like that, that just made me feel like, you know, I did the right thing. And when I came to New York, a lot of people were, a lot of the pianists that I looked up to and that I knew, were studying a lot of crazy advanced harmony. And, you know, I just felt like, man, I'd rather just play swinging music with Sam Jones than do that.
Yeah.
So I just, you make choices. And I just wasn't interested in that particular thing. I mean, I really served a long apprenticeship. I didn't make a record till I was 30.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's
21 to 30, I served apprenticeships. So,
yeah.
you know, Joe Lovano will tell you the same thing. You know, he and I came up the same way.
Yeah.
From Ohio. We met Woody Herman's band, for Christ's sake. And you know, you apprenticed yourself. You became a sideman, and you know, you found your people.
Yeah.
And it took a while, and there were no jazz competitions, and you know, Jazz at Lincoln Center or any of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Or Young Lions. You just had to work your way through the system.
Slow. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. Yeah. It's, but you played with Joe Henderson for quite some time, right? Like, how was he as a band leader? Like, what did you learn from him, for instance?
Well, from him, well, he played epic solos. I mean, 3 tunes was a set, an hour
sure.
set, 3 tunes. And I learned about patience. Like, he might start the night, and you know, okay, he's Joe Henderson. He's never going to play below a certain level, but I know what he's capable of because I've been listening to him forever. And it would be like, okay, you know, yeah, that's cool. But I would hear him work his way into a solo, you know, kind of play what he knew how to play, and then get to the point where he was playing what he didn't know how to play.
Yeah.
Or he was playing something fresh. I have terrible allergies right now. And he said something to me that was very profound, that I tell students to this day. From the very first week I played with him, I don't know, I was 22 or 23. He would play these long solos. And at a certain point, I would just think to myself, I'm not adding anything. There's no point in just continuing to comp. So I would just stop. And he wasn't looking at me, no vibe, nothing. I just felt it. And then if the solo went on long enough, at a certain point, I might feel like, okay, time to play again. And maybe go out again and come back in.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for several years, actually. And we never talked about music. We played the same 12 tunes for 10 years. The same 12 tunes, which was kind of great, actually.
Yeah, you really got into them, right?
Yeah, you get into them. And we were in the kitchen at the Village Vanguard, and, you know, we were just hanging out. And I said, you know, this thing I do when I stop playing and then I start playing again, you know, I've been doing it. Is it cool? You know, just want you to, you know, tell me if it's okay. And he looked at me and he said, if you feel it, it's right. Yeah. If you think it, it's probably not right. So I took that to mean, like, you know, if you get a feeling that something is boring, or if I'm playing along and I just feel like I should go into another key, or lose the form altogether, or go out of time.
Yeah.
If you feel something, if you feel it, respect that feeling. And that's really what this is about.
Yeah.
And also, if you're thinking it, it becomes a routine. Like, okay, we're always going to start this tune with me laying out. You know, well, that's not going to surprise him. So in a way, I'm taking away that spontaneous element from the thing.
Jazz, yeah.
So yeah, I learned a lot from him, but we never. That was the only time we ever talked about music ever.
Oh wow.
And he kept calling, so I guess I was doing okay. So yeah, I mean, you know, and also the lifestyle back then, it was crazy, and New York was 24 hours, and you know, it was just, you know, it's gotten so clean now. Earnest kids coming out of music programs, and you know, I miss the scene. I miss the craziness,
The
you know.
dirtiness in a way, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, like, you know, like.
Yeah, whether it was, you know, booze or drugs or, you know, everybody just kind of hung out, and it didn't, you know, there were not so many walls. I mean, you could, you know, go up to Art Blakey at the bar and say hello, you know.
Yeah.
It was very, you know, as long as you were like one of the cats, you could do that, you know. And then at a certain point, I began to realize, because I was gay, maybe I wasn't quite one of the cats, but and that took a while to resolve too.
Yeah, sure.
But you know, I felt like it was really a club. It was music that took place in clubs, and it wasn't so formal. And
was it more affordable in this sense also? Like,
oh
now,
yeah,
right. Yeah.
In the Village Vanguard for $6.
Wow, shit.
You could go to Bradley's and hear Tommy Flanagan for 2 sets for the price of a beer.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it was very easy, and also the clubs, they didn't charge a high cover charge because everybody was drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
And now people will go out and they'll have one Perrier or a glass of wine, so they have to charge more money for the cover charge. So unfortunately, like when I play a place like the Vanguard, you know, it's unaffordable for a lot of younger players.
Yeah.
And they'll go where it's cheaper, you know. But it's a little less democratic than it used to be. You know, things change, but
sure.
But you know, and jazz education has become a big business, you know. And you know, back then, I mean, none of these guys went to school, or if they did, they just maybe did a couple years at a, you know, classical program, and then went on the road.
Yeah.
You know, it was a different way of learning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's changes. I remember the first time I went to New York and was, you know, drinking the cheapest drink, and like just to get by, to see, you know, all the my favorite musicians sitting there in the corner, like, you know, that's where it has come to now. Even worse, I guess, probably through the years, and which is but
you know, of course, now we're dealing with, you know, some of our major venues are closing.
Yeah, it's a different story now.
Yeah, the Jazz Standard closed. That was a place I played for years, and other venues here in the U.S. are closing, and I'm sure in Europe too.
Yeah, the same. Yeah.
You know, I'm sort of surprised in a way that the U.S. is doing better with the vaccine thing than the EU. But hopefully it'll start. The EU will start to get it together, and we won't and the vaccines will be effective against all these new strains of this thing.
Yeah.
My partner and I are buying a house in Italy.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
And we can't even go there. We can't even get there.
Yeah, sure. Now it's a no-go. Yeah.
Get there. You know, we're hoping maybe in a month or 6 weeks we can get there, but we just don't know. I mean, every week is a new thing.
It's summer probably.
Yeah, and a lot of, you know, not all of them, but some of my friends are really struggling, you know.
Yeah.
People who are dependent on gigs and tours and don't have teaching jobs, and you know, they're kind of living month to month. And you know, there's not much social safety net here. There's no universal health care. We don't have a lot of stuff for people. I think in Europe the arts is more supported, not everything, but I know in Germany there's some kind of universal basic income thing that people are, but you know, a lot of my classical musician friends are suffering. I mean, people in orchestras and string quartets and soloists, and you know, I think the performing arts, theater, and
it's the same, in all areas.
Yeah, it's just been hit so hard because restaurants, because you have to be close together in a small space. And it's just going to be a while, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to get off on all that. But
no, you know, with I don't know if art survived through, you know, all the different crises, and I think somehow it will find like water its way through it. So I hope.
Yeah, we gotta hope that people will be hungrier for live music and dance and theater. You know, I mean, because I play the piano, I can do a lot of streaming things. But I mean, in the last 13 months, I've played with other people 3 times. You know, like a taped, you know, performance in a venue without an audience.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I did one this past Thursday, kind of under the auspices of the Jazz Standard. They're doing a series of taped performances that they taped in a very nice little concert hall. And I felt like I couldn't play. I was so rusty.
Yeah.
Because playing with a trio is a very different animal than playing solo all the time. It's a different thing. And all 3 of us after the concert, we just like looked at each other like, wow, that was terrible. So I think also for us musicians, there's going to be some kind of road shock.
Yeah.
You know, I've been making a living without going anywhere. And I've been lucky, I've been fortunate, but you know, when it comes to like going on the road again and 4 a.m. lobby calls and 2 planes and sound check and not backstage food and then a piano I don't like and then you do it the next day, you know, I don't really know how I'm gonna feel about it. It may be like a complete drag. I don't know. I mean, nobody knows anything really. I mean, that's what there is right now.
It's terrifying that, you know, we almost got used to the fact that that's how it is now. You know, I got used to the fact that you know, there's no gigs now. And I'm not searching for gigs or again, it's just like, okay, that's how it is. And that's not okay that we feel like that, because, you know, you've done that for 45 years. I've done that for 25 years. So it's part of your DNA, I guess, you know, so it's, you know, it's not a good mindset that we got used to it, I guess, but
well, anyway, I mean, I've definitely had long periods, the first 6 months of the lockdown, I just didn't really want to play the piano. You know, and towards last fall, I started to like look at it and say, okay, Fred, you've been working for 45 years. If you fuck off for 8 months, it's not such a big deal, right? But I was on a panel, Zoom panel call with a bunch of students with Chris Davis and Mary Halverson. And the students asked all of us, like, how are you doing with all this? And Mary said, well, you know, it's been nice. I've been able to write more music and, you know what's in the refrigerator for breakfast and all that. But she said, this is not like being at an artist colony or an artist retreat. You know, it's not like you have this career and then you're taking a month off to compose. It's like your career basically died.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've all had a certain level of grief about, you know, part of our identity as people who play music with people and in front of people. And that was just kind of ripped away from us.
Yeah.
And I guess with me, I need deadlines. Like I need to know when the next record date is, or when the tour is, or gee, I should write some more tunes for this situation, or I should arrange something, or I have a deadline.
Yeah.
You know, and when you say, okay, I'll do it tomorrow, and tomorrow you say, oh, I'll do it next week, and then a month goes by. I'm not one of those people who just gets up every day like, okay, you know, I'm gonna write music today, you know.
That's rare.
You know, it's just been a little, and everybody's reacted to it differently. Some people have been incredibly productive, and others have been depressed. And you know, there's no right way to handle an unprecedented situation like this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But you mentioned before, like, you know, getting up at 4 a.m., you know, catching a plane, doing sound checks and all this stuff. When was the first time you did that, like an extensive, let's say, European tour? With whom was it? Was this with Joe or?
No, the first long European tour I did was with the saxophonist Billy Harper.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, did the 70th records, yeah.
1979. And I had no idea what I was in for. I had no idea. I mean, I brought way too much stuff with me, not realizing that we were going to be going through train stations and up and down stairs in shitty hotels. I didn't really love the music. I wasn't really a good fit. I was also the only white person in a quintet.
Yeah.
There were lots of days off in shitty hotels. And the conditions weren't great, you know. I think for me, over all these years, you know, the longest, you know, I've really done my own tours. The longest have been like maybe 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, but that's already.
I think that's kind of my maximum.
Yeah.
And now I've gotten to the point where I can sort of insist on some days off.
Yeah.
We're not that desperate. We don't have to do every little fill-in gig every night. You know, we need a night off here. Let's pick a place that's pleasant.
Have a nice dinner and
and just have a day when you're not moving.
Yeah.
There are a few places in Europe where you can play a couple of nights.
Yeah.
Or hopefully you try to find places that are close enough together that you can drive instead of fly, or something like that. But you know, in the old days in America, you would play a week in Chicago, and then you play a week in San Francisco, and then you play a week in Washington.
Yeah.
You know, I was out with Art Farmer. We would play like 4 or 5 full weeks.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And you have a chance to, you know, unpack and explore. But, you know, when you're running around Europe, people say, oh, it's so great. You get to travel. It's so glamorous. But you know, you don't really see very much.
You don't see
know?
anything. Yeah.
Right. You see the airport or the train station, the hotel, the restaurant. You take a nap. You don't want to go to the art museum. You know, it's just unless you have a day off. You know, and then I was in Prague recently for the first time, and I had a day off, and I got to actually see some of the city.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
A lot of times you get your day off in like some tiny little
village.
Nothing. So, you probably know all about this.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, like, because you know, I had the same conversation the other day with one of my relatives, and you know, you get to Dresden, then you go to Munich, then you go to Zurich, and I was like, yeah, but I have no idea. You know, I remember the center, and I maybe have had a coffee if we weren't too late, but shit, it was dark when you get there. You know, you're in the club, and that's it. You know, or like Berlin, like the last time we just drove in, had like a really fast dinner, drove to the venue, did the whole, you know, it's like, yeah, I guess it's nice, but yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, we're lucky we are able to make some kind of living at what we enjoy, but you know, it's not always enjoyable. I mean, when the sound is bad, or when the people are not so nice, or the piano is not good, you know, and as the band leader now, I'm mostly a band leader or a soloist or something. You also have to feel, a lot of times you feel like you have to be on. You know, you can't, you know, when you're a sideman, you can kind of just lay back, let the leader deal with the stuff. But, you know, people want interviews. They want, you know, to take you to some dinner afterwards that you don't want to go to.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff.
Did you get better through years? Like being a band leader, I mean, did you learn how to cope with the whole situation, or?
Yeah, I did. I do. You know, in the US, I'm my own road manager. I don't really have a road manager in Europe, although I have a booking agent who likes to come out on the road, and he takes care of some stuff, which is helpful. But, you know, sometimes you've been out on the road a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, and, you know, I don't know, not everybody's happy all the time, and you know, people get sensitive and moody and tired, and I mean, it's not always happy. But the great thing about having a trio for a very long time now is that we all just have a sense like, okay, this is not going to be a transcendently great experience tonight. You know, we're playing outdoors in a crappy situation in Spain, right?
For instance,
This is not, you know, you know, the Village Vanguard. So we just know to be professional, to adjust the program so that we make people happy. Don't get bent out of shape if it's not like the best thing you ever played. Just to be on the same page about that, you know, and not feel like you have to give the greatest performance of your life every night, because I just don't think you can do that.
Yeah, we're human.
You know, we're not robots.
You
know, we're not robots, and you know, people are sensitive, and sometimes the situation isn't great. But I had to, you know, I learned a lot about being a band leader by being a sideman. I also learned a lot about how to construct a set working with great singers, how they put a set together. So that's not like 6 tunes in F or something.
6
ballads. You know, or 5 medium swing tunes in a row.
Oh my God.
Or 5 32 bar tunes in a row, or, you know, like how to kind of plan a menu that's interesting to us and interesting to the audience. You know, how do you structure that it's the same as sequencing an album.
Yeah.
You know, like Songs from Home, I decided to really open the door with a very quiet, almost a prayer kind of piece. Just something that would just kind of be like a warm bath.
That's beautiful.
Instead of like, I'm here to please you, And I think that also comes from making lots of albums.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like I have anything to prove right now. I leave all the pyrotechnics to the youngsters, and just try to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean that's the intention anyway.
Well, but no, come on, you've done so much. Yeah, like you said, you don't. But I think you found your voice also, the way you play and how you phrase, and that's who you are, and I think that's something to be incredibly proud of and happy at this stage, I would say. I mean, that's important.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but at my age, having done what I've done, when this pandemic hit the first, 9 months, I thought, okay, this is going to be another 9 months, probably. If we're lucky, next September, if we're lucky, a year and a half, it's going to be.
Yeah.
If it all goes well. I thought, okay, well, if this was it, it's like I wasn't really going to play gigs anymore. I was going to find another way to pay the bills or something. I mean, I thought, okay, I could say that I had a great career, and I did stuff that I would never have dreamed of as a 21-year-old in Ohio, that I would have done all the stuff I got to do, that I was so privileged to do. I could walk away and say, okay, I ticked off the boxes, it was a good run. But the younger players, like in their 20s, who are just starting to kind of break out, I feel more compassion for them, because they may be dealing with school debt, and they were looking forward to their first European tours this summer, and trying to be band leaders for the first time, or be sidemen on the road for the first time, or women. And just the rug just got pulled out from under them. And when it comes back, I think it's going to be harder for promoters and presenters to take chances on less known artists.
That's for sure.
And so I feel like it's been particularly cruel to those really super talented, people in their 20s. I think it's been really hard, and they're not going to have those kind of great experiences that I had, and that's sad.
Never looked at it like that. It changes the perspective.
That's cool that you're a literature major. That's great.
I love poetry. I mean, I translated so many American poets into Slovenian, and I just live with this now for last 25 years. I just love. That's why I love Leaves of Grass so much. It was one of the first albums which, for me, did justice, to the poetry, actually, because many times, like jazz and poetry, it's done superficially, if that's the right word, maybe. You know what I mean? It's just like, it doesn't serve the poetry. Many times the poetry just serves the music, just. But I think you kind of found really nice.
Thank you. I mean, I read a lot of poetry also, and I'm always looking for text that I might want to set. But great poetry, like so much of it, it's so musical in a way that music wouldn't add anything to it. And I've heard so many contemporary 20th century poetry settings, sort of what we call art songs, that just all they do is just, you can't understand anything with the way that the people sing them, with the classical singers. There's no diction.
Yeah.
And it just distorts what's there.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Whitman for me was, first of all, it took me like 9 months to find the bits that I wanted to set.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote the thing in a month, but it took 9 months to get the libretto. First of all, he expressed things that I want to express about nature and about love and about being in the present moment. It's almost Buddhist, the way that he looked at things, and just, asking us to see stuff between the surface.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme.
No, it's free verse. Yeah. It's
right, but there's rhythm in it. There is rhythm, and I mean, like, he did, crappy rhyming poems like "Oh Captain, My Captain," which is, not a great poem, but I think "Song of Myself," all 60 pages of it, is just one of the greatest things ever written by somebody in this country, and I think everybody should read it.
Yeah.
And I think he was a great American, in the way that Thoreau and Emerson were.
Yeah. Yeah.
What he had to say was just, it's so relevant today. And I've looked at all kinds of text, but and I've written songs with lyrics and to other people's lyrics, and writing to a lyric is one thing, but a poetry, is difficult. You got to find just the right thing.
Yeah.
And also Whitman is universal. A lot of poetry is very specific.
Yeah.
And I'm more interested in bigger themes,
he's very like that. Yeah, like Gary Snyder. You know Gary Snyder?
Yeah.
He's similar to me as Whitman, like this openness, that he has and addresses so many topics. I love that. He's such a genius.
Yeah, and when I wrote that piece, I had no idea it would be successful. But even as of 2 years ago, we were still doing performances of it, and the piece was written in 2003.
Yeah.
So it's had a long life.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that it worked out. And of course, having Kate and Kurt, Kate and Gerry, and a killing ensemble doesn't hurt either.
Definitely. Yeah. Can I ask you something, Fred, since you mentioned ensembles? I wanted to ask you about your trio that you've had for 10 or even more, 12 years now, with John Aber and Erik McPherson. These guys are amazing, and especially with you in trio. I think this is my favorite trio of yours, kind of next to that one with Tom and Drew. I mean, I love all those guys. And but how did you hook up this trio with John and Erik? When did you guys meet, and how did you get those guys?
It's sort of interesting. Like, I had a trio with Drew Gress and Tom Rainey, and then at a certain point, I swapped out Tom Rainey for Nasheet Waits. So it was Nasheet. Then Drew started getting really busy. Then I started using John and Nasheet. Then at a certain point, I felt like I needed something different from the drums. I love Nasheet, but it just wasn't quite what I was hearing. And Erik and Nasheet are best friends from like 10 years old. And John had played with Erik, and he said, "You should try Erik out."
They played with Andrew Hill, right? No,
Yes, they played with Andrew Hill.
Yeah.
And he just said, I think you'd really like Erik. We played a week at the Vanguard, and that was about a year after my coma, and summer of 2008. And we played about a year afterwards, and I said, this is the trio. And over the years, I mean, there's some pieces that we recorded on our last album, Live in Europe, that we recorded on the very first album, where you can really hear like all the years of playing this, like how it just turned into something else. And you know, and also, I mean, they're really good guys to go on the road with. And you know, that's so important. The older you get, like, you don't want to deal with people who don't make the lobby call and are a drag, you know. And lately I've been playing with this year I played with Drew and Jochen Ruckert. Who I enjoy too, but because John has been living in Michigan, he's got a teaching job there. But I mean, I'm sure that trio is, you know, it's not the end of it, but I think at some times I'm going to try some different combinations. I played a number of times with Drew Gress and Billy Hart.
Oh, wow.
And also Drew Gress and Joey Barron.
Oh, wow, that's a nice one.
I did a week with Drew and Paul Motion at the Vanguard. So, you know, but it's still like a core part of what I do. Just like certain duo partnerships that I have are really, you know, I feel like we're going to do this, you know, indefinitely. It's just like this ongoing. And if we only play every 2 years, it's still like, there's just something that is like familiar and surprising about it. So I'm very lucky. You know, sometimes I wish I got more sideman calls, you know, but I think the perception is now, you know, I'm going to be the front guy. So but in the duos, I can kind of feel like a sideman a little bit, which I really like.
Yeah, you love the duo settings, like.
I love the duos.
Yeah, like I heard you, like during this lockdown, you did something with Dan Tepfer and Chris Davis, like the duo, two pianos, right?
I did a duo with Dan with this crazy technology that he uses, and it wasn't flawless, but it was pretty good. I mean, in terms of hearing each other.
Sounds amazing,
Yeah, and we were 85 miles away from each other.
Wow.
And I've known him a long time. He was a student, now he's a friend, and you know, he's a very interesting musician. And I mean, that was fun, but the technology is so complicated that, you know, unless you're really a whiz with that stuff, you know, I would love to do a duo concert with Julian Lage like that, but I just don't know enough technically how to set it up. But if this goes on long enough, somebody's going to come up with a user-friendly way for musicians to play together live. Somebody will do it.
I'm sure too. With little delay, like almost no. That's impossible. That's the most important thing, I guess. So.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing free improvised music, maybe it's not so problematic. But if you're playing structures and songs, then it's
well, he's really carved a niche for himself doing this stuff, and he's been very productive during lockdown, and he's very, you know, he's got a lot of tech chops, and that's really helped him.
Definitely.
You know, I mean, sometimes I just do little streaming things on my phone, you know, just for Facebook, but I've also done, you know, I can also do much nicer ones with good microphones and 2 cameras, and you know, we've all had to learn this stuff. I know enough about Logic that I can do what I need to do, and occasionally I have to call somebody and say help, but it's you know, it's a pretty amazing thing that I can make an album on my laptop. You know, it's kind of ridiculous in a way. And And if this thing had happened 20 years ago without the internet, can you imagine how much worse it would be?
Yeah.
It would be scary.
No contact between musicians or people, it's, with the audience, no contact. Yeah.
Right. None. No streaming, no Zoom, nothing.
Yeah.
So,
Bizarre.
I mean, I'm not glad it happened, but I'm glad at least we have some user-friendly technology now.
Yeah. In a way.
Feel like a community a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like you're in Slovenia and I'm in Pennsylvania, how it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for me, these talks are so cool. Also, just I don't do any gigs. At least I feel like I contribute something to the community in a sense. Presenting my favorite musicians, who should be even more in my ears, of course, and eyes, like even bigger. You know what I mean? Huger, like whatever. Like, I did these talks with Tim Byrne and Tony Malaby and all these amazing guys who.
Yeah.
Who've done so many albums already, but in my eyes, all of you guys should be like really, but as long as.
Well, we're in such a tiny little world, but I think, of course, there's superstars, but even the superstars in jazz, I mean, they don't make in a year, what Taylor Swift makes for the concessions at one concert.
Yeah, that's bizarre, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and not that she's not talented. I mean, I like
no.
I like Taylor Swift, but jazz and classical. I mean, the ceiling for how much money you can make is much lower than movie stars and
definitely. We all know that when we enter this world, so one way or the other, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Cool, Fred. Well, thanks so much I have some.
Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.